Atomic Heart is about one thing: robots. Sexy robots, but also super angry, scary, human flesh destroying robots. But there's also sexy robots. On your journey, you'll need the best skills so you can woo or potentially kill the scary and sexy robots to stay alive. Here is the best skills to get early to survive your journey. Let's go. Let me know in the comments your favorite skills and if I've missed any so we can all help each other out. So first, let's cover a little bit about how skills work. So you use a currency called the neuropolymer to purchase new skills from the creepy robot machine. Now, this machine will allow you to purchase a bunch of skills, and you get the neuropolymer from either killing enemies or looting it from chests. It's just like one of those resources you'll pick up as you're like hoovering up all the materials in the world. You can also respec your skills by returning a skill, which will refund the cost directly back to you, so you can then spend it on a different skill. This is well worth doing when you're experimenting with the glove abilities and deciding which one you're going to run, as you don't want to waste those polymer points into a skill that you're no longer using. You can just refund that cost, give it back to yourself, and then use it to upgrade the glove abilities that you're actually using, so you're not wasting those points. Let's get into the skills themselves, and we'll start with character skills, as I think this is the most important category for any player, regardless of what kind of a build or glove abilities, etc. you're trying to use. So we'll start with Wild Boar, which increases your maximum health. Now, this is obviously super critical, but in this same line, there is a couple of skills that either improve your resistances to physical damage or elemental damage, that sort of thing, or you can go the other side, which gives you more maximum health. I would initially go into the side that increases your resistances, as the skills there are a little bit cheaper. So not only you get the points from the extra health from Wild Boar, but you can get some of those improvements to your resistances by following up that line, because the polymer cost is pretty cheap. After that, you want to head down and get the tactical backpack upgrades, because your backpack size is so small and it's critical that you increase that size, not only so you can carry more healing items, but also so you can carry more weapons, as weapons take up so much space in your bag, and the bigger your bags are, the more extra stuff you can carry, especially ammo, as ammo is pretty scarce unless you're crafting heaps of it yourself, and you don't want to have your bag be entirely full of either ammo or healing items, or just not have enough space for everything you need. Morning exercise is also super important, so you can actually move a little bit faster. There's no way to run in Atomic Heart, and your initial movement speed is pretty slow. So once you get morning exercise, you'll actually move just a little bit faster. It's not like a drastic difference, and it's not going to allow you to sprint or anything, but just being able to move faster, I think, is just a quality of life thing that really should be included. I would also grab Second Wind so you get an extra dodge charge as well. So initially you only have one dodge charge. This gives you two, which doesn't sound like heaps, but it actually does work out to be a lot, especially in boss encounters where you're constantly going to be dodging out of the way. It's also really valuable just to have morning exercise and Second Wind. So not only do you move faster, even in combat, you can move a little bit faster, move around enemies a bit better. Having that extra dodge charge just helps with your flexibility in those combat encounters to be able to avoid enemies and kind of stay on the run, I guess, because there is no run mechanic. So being able to move away a bit faster when you've got packs of enemies coming towards you is always beneficial to have in this kind of a game. Let's move on to the glove abilities themselves. Now, firstly, we'll talk about Shok, as you have to have Shok slotted. You can't remove Shok, so it makes sense that you would want to upgrade Shok because of this. Most of the skills here, you can't really go wrong, but Power Amplifier is pretty valuable, as it will increase the damage of Shok, but also push enemies back. Any way you can manipulate the enemy's position so you can get sort of a positional upper hand is valuable here. We'll talk about that a little bit later in this video as well. Chain Lightning, which is a little bit further down that tree, which is still valuable to have, as the discharge from Shok will bounce to another target. So once you've got some of that neuropolymer that you can invest more into Shok, then absolutely worth doing. Shok is the most staple glove ability that you will use, so you want to make sure you're upgrading this, and really can't go wrong with any of these skills in this line. Just upgrade Shok when you do have the points available, but I would definitely be prioritizing character, and that's why we did that first, then going into Shok, and then going into Mass Telekinesis. Now, Mass Telekinesis will allow you to grab all of the enemies in a specific area and like lift them up in the area for a period of time. Now, while they're up in the air, you can shoot them. They're basically just like sitting ducks, right? They're just there for you to shoot. It's like a shooting gallery, essentially. I would almost immediately grab the Forced Fall Acceleration. So when your Mass Telekinesis ends, it'll like slam them down into the ground, causing damage. This can kill enemies in some regards, especially if you've done damage to them. And it will also allow you to like finish off enemies. You put them up in the air, pop some rounds into them, and then slam them back down into the ground. Mass Telekinesis is really valuable, not only because of the damage it does, but it feels essential to me because because of its potential to stop enemies from coming towards you and controlling enemies within that space. Now, if you do get hit while this is active, it will interrupt it and end it. But as long as you're avoiding that, hit coming from enemies, you can really grab a huge bunch of enemies, damage them while they're in the air, and then slam them into the ground. It's really versatile for those large combat encounters, which there is a lot of them in Atomic Heart, as well as some of the smaller ones where, there's just one enemy that maybe is pretty strong and you're just trying to keep them away from you for an extended period of time. It's really valuable for that as well. Amplified Modular is also valuable for that exact same reason, as a way to upgrade the area of effect that it will do. So the more enemies you can put in that, obviously the better it is, as well as Barrow Trauma, which is a little bit further down the line, which will increase the amount of damage that Mass Telekinesis just does on its own. So just as like a passive, damage over time kind of effect, it'll give you the benefits from actually doing that as well. You do have one extra slot for your glove abilities. So Mass Telekinesis, I think, is absolutely essential. So you should always have that slotted. And then the other 3 glove abilities, it's really a little bit up to your playstyle and how you choose to play. First of these is Frostbite, which is a bit more of like a crowd control ability. So essentially what this will do is it'll just freeze the enemies in front of you. It does only last a certain period of time, and you can upgrade this to, say, increase its time, or even upgrade it with something like Absolute Zero, which will make it deal damage itself. But it's a good effect, but when you damage enemies that are frozen, it will, break that freeze, so they won't be frozen forever, and they won't be frozen forever anyway. And I find that there's a little bit too much overlap with the crowd control amulets to Frostbite as well as Mass Telekinesis, and I find Mass Telekinesis to be more valuable as it puts the enemies in the air. I can shoot them while they're in the air, whereas if you shoot enemies that are frost bitten, it will break the frostbite. So there is some overlap there and kind of crowd control, but you can run both of them and just crowd control enemies. I was doing that for a little while as well. Polymeric Jet is highly effective to increase the overall damage that you do, as it increases the amount of elemental damage the target will receive when it's covered in like the jet goo stuff. I don't know how else to describe it. So it'll take more, say, fire damage or shock damage, that sort of thing, while a target is actually covered in this stuff. Now, at the very initial stages of the game, I wouldn't be using this because you're not doing a huge amount of elemental damage. That only really starts coming into play when you start getting the cartridges and upgrading your weapons to do fire or electricity or like frozen damage, that sort of stuff. So initially, you probably won't use the jet, but as you get further into the game, the jet will become significantly more valuable because of the extra damage it'll do and the way you can upgrade it. A really good option though, especially for bosses, is the Polymeric Shield. So this will give you a shield in front of you that will block damage coming towards you. It doesn't block critical hits, but it does block basically everything else that'll be coming in front of you, so melee and range damage. So while you're learning the game and in the early stages until you get a lot of that elemental damage, this is the option that I personally would go with, and then change to the jet once you do have the Neuropolymer available to spend a lot of those skill points, because in those initial stages you can't really level everything together. You've got to pick your poison in terms of skills and glove abilities, and I would honestly take the character skills first and then into Shok and Mass Telekinesis, and then just have one of these different abilities like Frostbite or the jet or the shield just at its base level for the extra glove ability, and then eventually once you get the skills and get further into the game, you can start leveling that out. And I personally would go the jet as you get further into the game and then start with the shield, but really up to you. I'm interested to know what you guys think are the best glove abilities out of the Mass Telekinesis, Frostbite, the jet, and the shield. Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is NorZZa, and I hope you have a great day.